A few months ago, my mother and I were having, the conversation of why there's been an increase in mental illnesses like depression and anxiety, and as well as younger children, having ADD and ADHD, or even behavioral issues. And like myself and like my mom and a majority of people, we understand that, screen time it does have a big deal. Not a big deal. Let me rephrase that. It is a great reason why those things have increased. And I think a lot of people understand that it is our phones and it is the screen time on whatever technology you're using. But I don't think we quite understand why the thing we created has such a negative impact on us. And so basically, we understand that, and a lot of people understand and know that humans are social creatures and that we developed in tribes. And in these tribes, we develop, culture. And like my ninth grade teacher says, culture is a way of life. 4 simple words, a way of life. And with that way of life, we develop things of how we want to eat and how we want to dress and how we want to do our hair and the type of dances we have, things like that. As time goes on, we decide that we no longer want to be on survival mode. So we develop governments and we give away some of our freedoms in order to have security. And because of this, we're able to expand into civilization. We're able to grow and expand. And because of that, our cultures grow and expand as well. With that, we have these third spaces that come into play. And in these third spaces, we're going to see most of our youth is in them. And because of that, they're able to kind of be the major innovators of a society's culture. They're going to mark the time and the era in their own generation in how they dress and how they act and what music is listened to. Not entirely, but mostly. Going away from that, while we are social creatures and while we enjoy companionship and having conversations, doing things like that, I feel like a big part of that, a second part of us, we have forgotten that there has another way of life. There's that word. There's that definition. Another way of life, meaning, another part of us, another way of life. We have forgotten that our culture of solitude. And so, while there's third spaces where we can conversate with people, there have also been third spaces where we have been able to be to ourselves. And 2 of the big ones that I feel like have taken a major hit within the 21st century are really it's nature and libraries. And so, sorry about the sun. You don't need to see my face anyway. You just need to listen to my ideas. But somebody who's worked at the library, the amount of how we disregard libraries and how we just have little respect for them, it's so astonishing. And maybe that's because I've learned how to use a library, and maybe that's because I'm somebody who's socially awkward and I'm a little bit introverted. So for me to be able to hide and escape from the world, I would always just go to the library. But I don't think people understand that libraries are there. Libraries are hubs where people have developed and published their ideas. People write not just to express ideas, but to have conversations with people of all ages and races and, religions. They want you to have a conversation with them. And they want you to read their works to have that conversation. And they want you to connect their conversation to another author's conversation. And I feel like because we are defunding the libraries, and because they're being pulled out of public school education, oh my goodness, that is just so disrespectful. That's just so disrespectful. But we are not, because of those two things happening, we have not been able to go to an area and do that and chew on our own thoughts, chew on another person's thoughts, and develop our own values and beliefs. And I feel like that's today. It's not just about, people don't understand that it's not just about having good literacy skills. People don't understand that you have to be an active reader. And that's what active reading is. Just basically almost having a conversation with the author. And we're not doing that in today's world. And we need to do that within that solitude in order to develop our own beliefs and our values and our opinions, so that we're not easily persuaded by somebody else. But also too, people evolved with nature, and it makes no sense to me how we no longer want to be in it, that it's a nuisance, it's a pest. We want to tame it and civilize it. But the taming and civilizing it, that has always been our idea since we began colonizing the United States. I don't know about the rest of the world, but for many white Europeans, well, Europeans aren't white, but for Europeans that were either born in this country in the past, before the 20th century, or had come to the country before the 20th century, they really feared nature. And they thought it was while they thought it was mysterious in a good way, they also believed it was dangerous and they wanted to tame it. And I just feel like that idea has stuck with us, even though we as human beings evolved with it, and we understood the beauty of it, of staring up at the stars at night and wondering what could be out there. We need that solitude to activate our imagination. But let me go on. I'm ranting on too much about that. So just keep in mind the idea of the shrinkage of third spaces for solitude. But not only that, there's also kind of a decrease in people wanting to do activities of solitude. The crocheting, the knitting, the sewing, the reading, the writing, even just playing a game of solitary by yourself, Doing those things, doing anything of solitude, I feel like it just allows us to be to ourselves and allows us just to decompress and relax. And there's just not enough of that anymore. And that kind of gets to my big idea of what I want to say, is that I feel that the reason for the depression, the reason for the anxiety, the reason for the ADD and the ADHD is really because we need solitude to disconnect. Phones and iPads, tablets, computers, whatever, the social media, whatever, it has allowed us to connect to the world, which is a great thing. It's a great thing to see people of all cultures and to have everybody's viewpoints and to see different type of products and to buy them. It's a great thing. But before the technology became a big deal, even in the early 2000s, when I was a kid, we were able to just disconnect. If we didn't want to deal with somebody anymore, if we didn't want to deal with the world, we could just turn the TV off and just disconnect. We could just go to our room and disconnect. We could just leave our work at home and disconnect. If we didn't even want to do our homework, we could just leave it in the bag and disconnect. But everything, you cannot have an excuse for not doing anything. You cannot leave the world behind. And I just feel like activities of solitude, these places of solitude, we need them to decompress and relax and to just focus. I think we need to I think there's so much going on all the time, we can't disconnect and just hyper focus, if that makes sense. Our brains did not evolve. Our brains did not evolve to have information crammed down our throats 24/7, 7 days a week. And I'm sure if we had more days in the week and more days of the year, we would have more of it, most certainly. But our brains did not evolve like that. Our brains evolved for us to be in groups, but also to be able to sit to ourselves and decompress and relax and disconnect. we at some point in time had a healthy balance of who we are. And I think with the technology, we did not evolve with it. We did not adapt with it. And so our brains do not know how to handle it. And that's why we're having all these issues within ourselves. And the last thing I want to say, though, is, aside from that being the major reason why I wanted to make this video, to talk about that. But one thing that makes me kind of angry is that people within the industry say, oh, we need creators and we need thinkers, we need people of the 21st century. How do you expect great creators and great thinkers and inventors like how do we expect thinkers like our founding fathers, or painters like Frida or Georgia O'Keeffe, and how do we expect musicians like Bob Dylan and David Bowie? How do we expect to get people like this if there really is not a culture of solitude? Artists do not like to be bothered when they're painting. These are activities where we have to sit down and be to ourselves. We cannot be profound thinkers if we do not sit down in libraries with 20 books stacked up with us when we're just reading and writing. We cannot be profound thinkers. We cannot be profound musicians like Franz Liszt if we're not practicing 15 hours a day, if we do not have the motivation to be by ourselves. We cannot be profound painters or sculptors. We can't be Michelangelos and Leonardos if we do not learn to sit down and be by ourselves. There is no boredom in being by yourself. It's just we no longer understand that culture. We're losing that part of that healthy balance of who we once be. And we have to get it back if we want to be those people if we want to be who we once were. We have to disconnect ourselves from the screen time and learn how to develop values and learn to develop those type of skills once more. And that's pretty much all I have to say about that. Oh, let me go. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that. There's nothing more to it. So if you guys have anything, if you have something important you want to say, you write in the comments. I'm sorry if I have a hillbilly accent, though. Oh, moment your wipers. I'm sorry if I have a hillbilly accent. Sometimes you can't understand me, or my voice is a little too high pitched. I know. Writing has been more of a skill to me than the talking. But that's all I have to say for this video.